Captain Zixar adjusted the holographic display on the bridge of his merchant vessel, the Crystal Wanderer. The three-dimensional star map flickered to life, showing trade routes that connected thousands of civilized worlds across the galaxy. His six eyes focused on one particular region where the map simply ended. No trade routes, no mark systems, just a blank void labeled with a single warning in universal script. Human space, navigation not recommended. Captain, we're approaching the buffer zone, announced his navigation officer, a tentacled melody whose skin rippled with nervous colors. Should we adjust course to maintain standard distance? Zixar's mandibles clicked thoughtfully. He had been running trade routes for 40 cycles, and in all that time, he had never seen another region marked this way. The Vargon Empire, known for eating their enemies alive, had detailed maps. The Crystalline Collective, who viewed organic life as impurities to be cleansed, had their territories thoroughly charted. Even the dreaded Void Singers, whose mere presence drove others mad, had their space mapped and cataloged. But humans? Nothing. Maintain course, Zixar ordered. We're still in safe space. The bridge crew exchanged nervous glances. Everyone knew the stories. Ships that ventured too close to human space sometimes came back changed. Their crews would speak in hushed tones about things that shouldn't exist, about physics that didn't follow rules, about humans who smiled too much and knew things they shouldn't know. Contact on long-range sensors, the tactical officer reported. It's a human vessel, sir. Designation reads as CSV Unlikely Story. The name alone made Zixar's carapace shiver. Who names their ship something like that? They're hailing us, Captain. Against his better judgment, Zixar nodded, put them through. The view screen shimmered and revealed a human. Female. If Zixar's xenobiology was correct, she had the characteristic bilateral symmetry of her species, with those unsettling forward-facing predator eyes and exposed teeth that humans claimed was a sign of friendship. She wore a simple gray uniform with no visible rank or insignia. Good day, Captain Zixar. I'm Commander Sarah Chun of the Unlikely Story. Welcome to the edge of human space. I see you're carrying Altarian silk and Nexus crystals, heading to the Outer Rim markets. Zixar's primary heart skipped a beat. His manifest was encrypted with military-grade protocols. There was no way she should know his cargo. How did you... Oh, lucky guess. Sarah's smile widened, which only made things worse. Listen, Captain, I notice you're taking a long way around. If you like, we could offer you passage through human space. Cut your journey time by about 60%. Every instinct in Zixar's body screamed danger. But 60%? That would mean arriving weeks ahead of his competitors. The profits would be enormous. What's the catch? No catch. Well, there are some guidelines. You'd need to stay on designated routes, no scanning, no recording, no deviating from the path. And you'd need to accept a pilot. For safety. Whose safety? Zixar asked before he could stop himself. Sarah's laugh was light and musical, but somehow it made the bridge feel colder. Why? Everyone's safety, of course. So interested? The smart thing would be to decline politely and take the long way around. The profitable thing would be to accept. Zixar thought his crew, his family back home, the debts that kept mounting despite his best efforts. What guarantee do we have of safe passage? You have my word as a human, Sarah said, and somehow that carried weight. Not the weight of treaties or contracts, but something older and more primal. We've never lost a guest who followed the rules. That phrasing bothered Zixar. Not never lost a ship, but never lost a guest. And who followed the rules suggested there were those who hadn't. I need to discuss with my crew. Of course. Take your time. We'll be here. We're always here when people need to think about it. Another smile. Though I should mention, the offer expires when you reach the next navigation beacon. After that, you're committed to the long route. The transmission ended, leaving the bridge in uncomfortable silence. Captain, his security chief, a four-armed Tarkanian, spoke up. This is unwise. The stories are just stories, Zixar interrupted. though he didn't believe it himself. What facts do we have? The science officer pulled up data on his console. Human space represents approximately 12% of the galaxy by volume, but it's strange. No one has accurate charts. Ships that enter return with corrupted navigation data. Some claim to have traveled impossibly far in too short a time. Others report seeing the same human colonies in completely different locations. And the humans themselves? Contradictory reports. Some describe them as helpful, even friendly. Others speak of capabilities that should be impossible. They appear to have standard technology on the surface, but the science officer paused, his blue skin paling. There are documented cases of human ships appearing in places they shouldn't be able to reach, of humans knowing things they couldn't possibly know, of reality itself behaving strangely in their presence. Zix-AR looked around his bridge. His crew was good, loyal. They deserved better than constantly running behind schedule, always struggling to make ends meet. One successful run through human space could set them up for cycles. Send a message to the unlikely story, he decided. Tell them we accept, pending review of their terms. The response came immediately, as if Sarah had been waiting. Her face appeared on screen again, still smiling that unsettling smile. Wonderful. I'll send over our standard guest packet. Don't worry, it's quite straightforward. Just a few simple rules to ensure everyone has a pleasant journey. A data packet arrived moments later. Zix-AR opened it on his personal display, and his heart sank. The few simple rules numbered in the hundreds. Rule 1. Do not ask why the stars are different in human space. Rule 2. If you encounter a human child alone in a corridor, do not follow them. Rule 3. The coffee in the mess hall is perfectly safe for most species. Do not ask what happened to the species for whom it is not safe. Rule 4. If a human says that's interesting, immediately report to your quarters and remain there until cleared by human personnel. The list went on. Don't look at the shadows too long. Don't count the number of humans you see. If you hear knocking from outside the hull while in hyperspace, do not acknowledge it. If a human offers to tell you a story, politely decline. If they insist, do not listen to the ending. Captain, his communication officer whispered, these aren't trade route guidelines. These are survival instructions. Zix-AR continued reading, his unease growing with each rule. Some were mundane. Stay within marked areas. Others were inexplicable. If you see yourself in a corridor, turn around and walk away. Do not run. Do not speak to yourself. Rule 73. Do not ask about Earth. Rule 74. If someone tells you about Earth anyway, forget what you heard. Rule 75. If you can't forget, do not spread the information. At the bottom of the document was a simple statement. Acceptance of these terms is binding. The pilot will arrive shortly after confirmation. Zix-AR's finger hovered over the acceptance button. Every rational part of his mind screamed at him to fly away, to take the long route, to stay in map space where physics made sense and reality followed rules. But he thought of his youngest daughter, waiting for him to return with enough credits to pay for her education. He thought of his crew, who had stayed loyal despite the hard times. He thought of all the ships that had made this choice before him and returned safely if changed. He pressed accept. The response was instantaneous. Pilot en route. Sarah's voice came through the comm. Prepare for docking. And Captain, welcome to the interesting side of the galaxy. Through the viewport, Zix-AR watched a small shuttle detach from the human ship. It moved differently than it should, taking angles that hurt to watch, arriving faster than physics should allow. His science officer made a strangled sound. Captain, that shuttle it folded space. Not a hyperdrive, not a jump engine. It literally folded the space between us. Steady, Zix-AR commanded, though his own voice shook. Remember the rules. We're guests now. The shuttle docked with barely a whisper. Moments later, the bridge doors opened and a human walked in. Male, tall, wearing the same gray uniform as Commander Chun. He looked perfectly ordinary, which somehow made it worse. Captain Zix-AR, I'm David Park, your pilot for this journey. Please, don't let me interrupt your normal operations. I'm just here to provide navigation assistance. He moved to an empty station and began working with an ease that suggested he'd done this many times before. How long have you been a pilot, Mr. Park? Zixar asked, trying to make normal conversation. David smiled that same unsettling human smile. Oh, time's a funny thing in human space, Captain. Let's just say long enough. On the main screen, the star map flickered and changed. The empty region labeled human space suddenly filled with routes, passages, and navigation markers. But something was wrong. The routes didn't stay still. They shifted and moved like living things, and some seemed to exist in more dimensions than should be possible. Don't try to memorize it, David advised without looking up. It won't look the same next time anyway. That's why we need pilots. Why doesn't it stay the same? The question slipped out before Zixar could stop it. David's fingers paused over his console. Captain, what's rule number 1? Do not ask why the stars are different in human space, Zixar recited, his voice hollow. Exactly. Now, shall we begin? We have a schedule to keep, and trust me, you want to stick to the schedule in human space. The universe here doesn't like tardiness. As the crystal wanderer began to move toward the border of human space, Zixar noticed something that chilled him to his core. The unlikely story hadn't moved from his position, but somehow it was already ahead of them, waiting at the border. How did they... Captain, David interrupted gently, you're going to see a lot of things that don't make sense. The less you question it, the smoother your journey will be. Just think of the prophets, and remember, we've never lost a guest who followed the rules. There was again that specific phrasing. As they crossed into human space, the stars did indeed change. They moved in patterns that shouldn't exist, dancing to music that Zixar couldn't hear, but somehow felt in his carapace. His instruments gave readings that contradicted each other, showing them in multiple places at once, all of them correct. Welcome to human space, David said cheerfully. Please keep all appendages inside the reality bubble at all times. Zixar gripped his command chair and wondered what he'd gotten his crew into. Through the viewport, he could see other ships in the distance, following their own impossible routes through the twisted space. Some looked normal. Others seemed to exist in too many dimensions or not enough. All of them followed their human pilots without question. 37 hours to the outer rim, David announced. In normal space, that journey takes 3 months. Aren't shortcuts wonderful? As the crystal wanderer delved deeper into human space, following routes that existed in directions that didn't have names, Zixar understood why the galactic map stopped at the border. Some things were better left unmapped. Some territories were marked not to keep people out, but to give them the choice to stay away. But it was too late for such wisdom now. They were in human space, where the rules were different, where physics was more like a suggestion, and where the most terrifying thing of all was how helpful the humans were. 37 hours. All he had to do was survive 37 hours. In the distance, something massive moved between stars. Zixar started to look closer, but David spoke without turning around. Rule 41, Captain. Zixar checked his display. If something is too big to be a ship, don't look at it directly. Very good. You're going to do just fine. The massive thing moved on, and Zixar kept his eyes fixed firmly on his instruments, beginning to understand why everyone knew better than to ask about human space. Some knowledge came with a price too high to pay. But the prophets, he reminded himself. Think of the prophets. In 37 hours, he would either be rich or he would understand why the other option was no longer possible. Either way, he was beginning to suspect he would never look at the galactic map the same way again. The first 12 hours in human space passed without major incident, which somehow made Captain Zixar more nervous, not less. The crystal wanderer followed his impossible route through space that bent and twisted in ways that made his crew nauseous to observe. David Park, their human pilot, remained at his station, occasionally humming what might have been music or might have been something else entirely. Approaching the first way station, David announced. We'll need to stop for a mandatory rest period. Union rules. Union. Zix-AR's translator struggled with the concept. You mean a trade organization? David's smile was cryptic. Something like that. The Transdimensional Pilots Union takes worker safety very seriously. 8 hours of piloting through folded space, then mandatory 4-hour break. It's for everyone's benefit. Through the viewport, a station materialized. It hadn't been there moments before, or perhaps it had always been there, and they simply hadn't been in the right dimension to see it. The structure defied conventional design, with sections that seemed to exist in different time streams simultaneously. Waste station probable cause. David read from his console. Good, they have decent coffee. Zix-AR checked his rules. Number 3. The coffee in the mess hall is perfectly safe for most species. Do not ask what happened to the species for whom it is not safe. The docking procedure was smooth, too smooth. The Crystal Wanderer didn't so much dock as suddenly find itself already docked, as if it had always been there. Zix-AR felt his memories adjusting, trying to make sense of the discontinuity. All crew may disembark for the rest period. David announced over the ship's comm, please remain in designated areas. The waste station staff are very friendly, but remember Rule 18. Zix-AR quickly checked. If a human offers to show you something cool, politely decline unless you're prepared for your definition of cool to change permanently. His crew looked to him for guidance. The prospect of stretching their legs was appealing, but the station itself radiated wrongness. It was too normal, too welcoming, like a predator's lure. Groups of 3 minimum, Zix-AR ordered. Stay together. Follow all posted rules. And remember, we're guests here. The station's interior was a study in contradictions. The architecture seemed designed for dozens of different species, yet somehow accommodated all of them perfectly. Corridors that looked too narrow widened as you approached. Ceilings adjusted their height based on who was walking beneath them. Gravity itself seemed negotiable. Zix-AR's group found the designated rest area easily enough. Too easily. They hadn't followed any signs or asked for directions, yet somehow they'd walked directly to it. The lounge was filled with other trading crews, all looking slightly shell-shocked, all carefully not making eye contact with each other. A human server approached, her smile bright and genuine. Welcome to Waste Station Probable Cause. First time in human space. Yes, Zix-AR admitted, seeing no point in lying. How exciting. Can I get you anything? We have refreshments tailored to all biochemistries. The menu adapts to your needs. She handed him what looked like a standard data pad, but the text on it shifted and changed, showing options he hadn't even known he wanted. Comfort foods from his homeworld that shouldn't exist as far from home. Drinks that promise to ease the existential dread of non-Euclidean geometry. Something called temporal tea that came with a warning label. Just water, Zix-AR said carefully. For all of us. The server's smile never wavered. Of course. Though if you change your mind, the probability pudding is quite popular. It tastes like whatever dessert you were going to order next week. She left to get their drinks, moving through the crowd in ways that hurt to track. Sometimes she was serving multiple tables simultaneously. Sometimes she hadn't left yet, but the drinks had already arrived. Captain, his security chief whispered, look at that crew in the corner. Zix-AR glanced over and felt his heart stutter. It was a Melody crew,